going on, everyone? It's Friday night. Welcome to week 5 and episode number 5 of the Fantasy Cheat Sheet podcast, a member of the Going for Two Live podcast network. Once again, you can find us, as always, on Twitter at Going for Two Live, or head on over to YouTube. Subscribe for that Going for Two Live YouTube page. Catch all the great programming on Going for Two Live, including the Fantasy Cheat Sheet. As always, this show is the show where we, my two co-hosts and I, break down the 10 things that you need to know heading into this weekend's games. And as I am joined every week, I'm joined by, as I said, my two co-hosts. First, introducing, he's at Drop the Mic FF. We have Mike Hicks. What's going on, Mike?
How's it going, Jay? What's up, Evan? Just waiting for week 5 to get going. And, man, I got to get up early on the West Coast for that Atlanta Jets game, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, yeah, London. Yeah, great game we gave London this year, as always. You know, only the best. And, yeah, that's an early one, especially on the West Coast, for sure. And introducing also our other co-host, Evan Ritter. You can find him at EV_RITT3 on Twitter. Evan, what's going on?
How's it going, guys? Just ready to hop right into it and talk about, last night's game and then moving forward week 5.
Thanks, Evan. And I am Jay Christensen. You can find me at JAYC_DFF on Twitter. And yes, we are here week 5. We got a London game this weekend. And as always, we kicked off the week with a Thursday night football game. This week it was Seahawks and Rams. This turned out to be a pretty consequential game after what was a pretty sloppy game overall. I would say some of the games previous weeks with even inferior competition were kind of better games. But ultimately, this one turned into the Rams' victory. They won 26-17 last night. We saw a good performance from Matt Stafford, but I would say pretty inconsistent. Same thing for Russell Wilson and the injury, which we're going to get to in a second. Overall, some good performances by Robert Woods. Cooper Kupp was pretty good as always, and DK Metcalf showed up this week. But as always, we're going to go through this a little bit and get some of our takeaways from the game last night and what are the storylines coming out of it for fantasy football. We're going to start with you, Evan. Give us some takeaways from Thursday night football.
So my biggest takeaway, man, is just the freaking injury bug just continues to plague these Thursday night matchups. At least the last few weeks, we see the CMC injury, then we get the Joe Mixon. Now, both quarterbacks last night injured their fingers, and what people are cleverly calling the finger bowl. But obviously Russ's injury, looks to be a little more severe, which just sucks, man, because, the guy has pretty much been, the Terminator per se for his career. He just never seems to get hurt. He's always available. So I'm at least hoping with these 10 days rest, he can get back on the field sooner rather than later and avoid these surgery talks that are going on as of right now. Last couple key points I'd like to touch on is Robert Woods. He was on the cheat sheet last week, and man, did he bounce back in a big way, being hyper-targeted by Stafford and finishing the game with 12 receptions, 14 targets for 150 yards. And quite honestly, his night could have been even bigger, but, Stafford overthrew him. He missed Cooper Kupp on a target, which kind of leads me into my last and final takeaway, which is Stafford, in this offense just don't seem to be rolling on all cylinders like they were in those first few games. The last 2 games, Stafford has, missed on some throws to his pass catchers that, it seemed like he could have hit on in his sleep, the first couple weeks. They were spot on to begin the season. And maybe this week it was that finger that was bothering him. Maybe last week it just seemed, to be a down week. But he's just missing some throws that, like I said at the beginning of the season, he was easily making. So, I'm not giving up on this offense by any means, but I just think it's definitely worth noting and keeping a close eye moving forward, because at least I had them, and I think they are worthy of a top 5 offense the rest of the season. So, I'm just hoping it was just a couple down weeks and nothing more.
Yeah, it was nice to see Bobby Trees alive again, targeted,
Yes,
looking good. Russell Wilson, this is a very influx situation. The latest that I've seen is from NBC Sports Edge. They did an MRI. It looks like torn tendon in the finger. So it's looking like 6 to 8 week timetable. I was hearing surgery talk to, maybe some screws. I don't know if it's 100%, but I was seeing some of that too. But we do know this is probably a timetable of, say, at least 6 weeks, somewhere in that range. So I'll throw this to you, Mike, with that in mind. And Evan, you could throw in some points too after. What do you make of Seattle's offense going forward? Obviously, Geno didn't look terrible last night. But I got to think this is a step back for all of the fantasy players on Seattle Seahawks for however long Russ is out.
So I don't think we need to go too detailed about this because it's kind of obvious on how much this is a disappointment in Seattle. I will say this, out of the 2 wide receivers, I would rather have DK Metcalf on this because I think DK, with the shorter routes that he can run and just the physicality, I think he's going to, and we saw it in that last fourth quarter, he's going to get targeted more than Lockett. You're not going to see those big, long, down the field 50-yard plays that Russ can throw, out of the pocket. I think it's going to be a more short to intermediate. I think Homer and Collins and DJ, if depending on what happens with, and they don't even have a healthy running back in Chris Carson. So DJ Dallas and Homer might be more involved in the short run, throws to the running back, short passing game to the running back. If Gerald Everett comes back healthy from COVID, maybe he'll have. But right now, I would want DK Metcalf. And if you have Tyler Lockett in redraft, either trade him or just temper your expectations.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just like Russ and him just had that hookup, and they almost did it again if it wasn't for a pass interference play there, which down the field, which they basically were like, we give up. Let's just tackle Lockett before he, could get to the ball. But they just seem to have that. I'll just chuck it 65 yards and Lockett will get it. That's not happening with Geno. I would be pretty surprised if that happened. Anything can happen, but it's not going to happen with the frequency that it happened with Russ. So obviously that takes a big step backwards. Really hurts all facets of the game, like you said. It's pretty obvious. And Chris Carson, where you're worried about him a lot, piled on having him on your rosters too. A neck injury, which is not fun to hear. Back and neck is just never a great thing. Tends to be chronic. And then to have the offense take a step back, that's going to temper, the ceiling of his opportunities, for scoring and touchdowns, which he needs. So I don't like it one bit. And Russ is fun to watch too. So it's just another injury bug on these Thursday night games. Final thoughts, Evan? Anything to add on? We're hearing that Russ news, just not good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Mike pretty much hit it perfectly. Metcalf is definitely the receiver you want because he is the bigger target for Geno. And while Geno looked good, it definitely could be one of those things, you game plan for Russ, all of a sudden Geno gets tossed in and they're just not really game planning for him. But as teams get to game plan for Geno Smith, you definitely want to temper your expectations for the Seattle offense.
That is for sure. So we're going to shift on over. That was Thursday Night Football, so that is in the books. We're going to shift over to our 10 Chiefs of the week. We have a quick comment here. I just want to touch on it real quick before I lose some of these. We try to get to these as best we can, depending on how many they are. We'll give this to Mike, actually. Just you're a Chiefs fan. Give me your thoughts on Josh Gordon.
If we're talking fantasy, B-dubs, do not play him this week. They're going against a stout, and I mean stout, Bills pass defense. But on top of that, he's only been in the team for a week and a half. Could he make a play for the Chiefs and do something that the Chiefs need to happen? Like have a guy the size of Dwayne Bowe actually go up and get a touchdown in the end zone they haven't had since Dwayne Bowe. Don't get me started on that. But I do think he'll be a good addition to the team. But right now, stay away from him in fantasy. I didn't even try to get him in fantasy with my fab. Just temper your expectations if you do have to play him, but I would stay away from him. But I think the only way I would play him is in the way that Evan would maybe play him, and that is in a GPP.
Yeah, sure. Not bad there yet.
I can't believe we're doing this with Josh Gordon again. And honestly,
it's a Groundhog Day, man.
if it were in any other offense, I would stay far away from Josh Gordon. in this Kansas City Chiefs offense, I'm at least willing to put him on the end of my bench, stash him, and see what happens if I have roster space available. But I'm not going out and trying to drop anyone or make room for Josh Gordon.
Yeah, he's past the point where you sacrifice to get him on your team in any way, shape, or form. And I would not play him unless he shows something. So let's get to a number one topic of the week we list our 10 things you need to know going into this weekend's games. We're going to kick it off with you, Evan. Give us number one.
So for me, I'm going to start off with Joe Burrow. He's a player I'm trying to get on my rosters in trades. Unless I have one of these elite level quarterbacks, obviously. But as we know a lot of people do, myself included, we wait on quarterback a lot of times. So maybe you have a Tannehill who just really hasn't played up to expectations yet, or you got hit with the Russell Wilson injury last night. Whatever the case is, if you need a quarterback, I would be looking to acquire Burrow because he's been excellent so far. And moving forward, I think he's about to actually take it up a notch even further. Through the next 4 weeks, he faces the second easiest strength of schedule. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and take on Burrow and all the DFS as well. He starts this easy strength of schedule with the Packers, who ranked 29th in passing touchdowns allowed this season. We know Mixon is out for sure. Higgins seems to be kind of looking like he's on the trajectory to play this week. So that bodes well for Burrow. But what I really want to touch on is Mixon being out. I think, for fantasy purposes, that plays into Joe Burrow's favor because we should expect the Bengals to, put it in Burrow's hands and increase this passing attack volume. So far this season, Burrow is either first or second in yards per attempt, passer rating, and completion rate. He's coming off a season high 22.3 fantasy points against the Jags last week. And I expect him just to continue to play at a high level, not just for, these next 4 weeks moving forward, but the rest of the season. And especially these next 4 weeks with, like I said, the second easiest strength of schedule ahead of him.
Yeah, I definitely like that match. I got to think you're going to throw to stay with the Packers. Packers, facing a Bengals defense that's better, but not great. Still a team that is going to give up points. They're going to have to throw with Green Bay, I would expect, especially I think Mixon's going to give it a go tomorrow to maybe try to go. But no matter what, I'm not expecting them to lean on the run. I would expect this to go through the passing game here. And he finally gets his 3 weapons back on the field at the same time there with Burrow, which they haven't had since week 2. So I like it there. Mike, thoughts on the Bengals here and Joe Burrow?
I'm going to keep it nice and short. I'm in way too many leagues to tell the audience how many I'm really in, but I'm at a 25. I'm at like a 25 to 30% share of Burrow. So I am all on the Burrow train. I have him in SFB as my number 1 QB. So give me the Burrow hype train, baby. I like it. I like it, Evan. I like it, Evan.
There you go. Yeah, you have him in 25 leagues, and that's 25%. You're in 250 or something like that, right?
Not that many, man.
100 leagues, yeah.
Close enough. Feels like it when I'm trying to do waiver wires.
Yeah. If you add in best ball, maybe, yeah. But I like that whole passing offense this weekend. So we'll see if it comes to fruition, but I definitely like it this week for sure. And that, strength of schedule bodes well for him as well. Let's jump to your first one of the week here, Mike. It's number 2 on our top 10. Let's get into it here. What do you got for us?
All right. So last week on Monday night, the Chargers running back Austin Eckler went off for 26.5 points in half-point PPR. Everyone is loving PPR. Everyone is loving Eckler. Everyone on Twitter and in the fantasy community was looking out for this breakout. It's only the second time he's ever ran for over 100 yards on the ground. Here's the problem. They're going against the Cleveland Browns. Listeners, remember the Browns have a very, very stout defense. Here's a stat for you. Where's it at? There it is. Okay, against wide receivers, they are 6th in the NFL. Against running backs, they are number 2, and against receiving running backs, they are number 3 in the NFL against receiving running backs. What does that tell me? that tells me that you should temper your expectations in this game for Eckler. I think the Chargers are going to win this game. I think Chargers defense is going to help them win this game because I think they're going to pressure Mayfield. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people think because both defenses are good. And I think if Herbert and the Chargers win this game, which I believe they do, I think it's going to be more in the passing game with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Jared Cook. So don't expect what you saw last week. I mean, Eckler this year has had 11 points, 13 points, 16 points, and 26. I think we're going to be looking more at a 10 or 11 point game than a 16 to 26 point game. So just temper expectations because what a lot of people like to do, and it's unfortunate just because recency bias, is we get one big week and we expect that to be the consistency of that player. And I don't see that happening this week.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a harder matchup than when they had the Raiders last week. Evan, let me throw it to you here. Are you buying into Eckler this week, or is it a little bit of a fall back with that tough Browns defense?
I'm buying in on Eckler the rest of the season.
I knew he was going to disagree with me.
I do not care. I think the man is matchup proof at this point. I'm moving him into my top 5 for the rest of the season. In that Joe Lombardi offense, he is going to thrive. We've seen, Alvin Kamara probably wishes he had Joe Lombardi back. And with Austin Eckler having a similar skill set to Alvin Kamara, Joe Lombardi is taking full effect of that. And I mean, last week we saw he finally got red zone touches. When I saw that, I was just through the roof. If Austin Eckler can see, his work, the work that he's going to get in the passing game, but then last week we saw him run between the tackles and we saw him get looks in the red zone. If that becomes the norm, then Austin Eckler is a league winner. So for me, I just think at this point, with the talent that Austin Eckler provides and the receptions he's going to get, I just don't see any way to temper expectations for him. There's no way you're sitting Austin Eckler. And like I said, for me, he's a top 5 back rest of the season.
Oh, I'm definitely not sitting him. I don't want people to think that. I ain't sitting him. I just think we need to – I just personally am tempering my expectations.
Right.
Yeah, maybe a guy you're not spending on in DFS this weekend, maybe.
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, he's going to be a more expensive player in that format anyways, but man, he was so good because the receptions is such a big – it's not one of those backs you have to worry about game script going. He's just always going to be involved. Just an easiest guy to just play in your lineup
and he's playing in front of he's playing behind the best offensive line I think he's had his whole career. So
I think so. Yeah, they actually invested there on that team, unlike some other teams, and it is definitely paying off for sure.
Yeah.
As they have, I think, filled the right holes to kind of be a contender. I like that team, for sure. I'm going to try to mix in. We've got a lot of action in the chat, which I like. Real quick, I'm going to try to mix them in when it makes sense, like if we have a topic, but this one's running back related. So real quick here, Henderson played in Thursday Night Football. We didn't really touch on him. Just another solid performance. He was a little bit in and out of that game with a injury scare, but I think this is actually a close one. A lot closer because I love Gibson coming in, but Henderson's been such a workhorse. They give him all the volume on that team. So the rest of the season, Henderson or Gibson. I like Gibson's upside, but I'm a little worried about that. I actually am very 50-50 on this at this point, and I almost lean slightly Henderson. What do you guys think?
Did you guys see the news today about Henderson or about Gibson?
Yeah, Gibson. There was the shin stress fracture, possibly in the shin. That's not great.
I'll be honest. I am a Gibson truther.
Me too.
But this scares the hell out of me. This is closer to 50-50 for me now, because here's the thing. They still have McKissick that they can put in to give him some relief. And they got the rookie, what's his name?
Jared Patterson,
that if something gets worse or they feel like, they need to do load management, because I think load management with a 17-game season is going to be a real thing in the NFL. That's what scares me the most.
Yeah, and they gave Patterson a couple carries in the fourth last week too. There was a stretch where Gibson didn't have another carry from, I think, very early in the fourth to the end of the game, which I might have been related to the injury. That makes some sense. And they just trust McKissick in pass protection, passing situations, 2-minute drill. He's just too involved where, man, I thought Gibson could kind of come on there, but if an injury is going to hold him back from taking any work from McKissick, then I just like what Henderson's getting there. With that full work. I mean, they just, besides that stretch of Sony when they were kind of tending to Henderson, it's just all him. So like, I think you just got to buy into that short term. Long term, it's Gibson all day, but man, it's a bummer, but I slightly lean Henderson there. I'm going to jump to mine and we'll spin back to some of these other questions as we go along. And so this is number 3 on the week. My first topic that I want to bring up is that Jaguars passing game that we kind of talked about a tiny bit last week. They had the Thursday night game. We saw DJ Chark get injured in that game, and I really like them coming into this week. And I'm just going to keep going back to the well of play receivers versus the Titans. It's worked well so far. Last week, Corey Davis was one of my calls on the show here, and he obviously had his revenge game, had a big touchdown against them. Good fantasy day there. So I like that. Also, Jamison Crowder, off an injury, had a solid game as well. So it's like you can basically throw almost any receiver into a game versus the Titans, and you get a decent shot at a good fantasy game. They have given up the most points to opposing wide receivers on the season so far. The only team that's given up over 200 points to opposing wide receivers. They're at about 205. And they've also given up 5 wide receiver 1 performances, guys in the top 12 each week. So this is just a nice matchup, good cornerback matchups for both Jones and Laviska. So I like that. I think they're both solid top 30 plays for sure. I think they're sneaky fringe back end wide receiver 2s, but definitely in that 24 to 30 range. If you're looking for a solid flex play, I really like them there. And I think that target share is going to be solid. We saw Laviska jump up to 33% target share. So he's the one I'm leaning toward a little bit here over Jones, but I like them both. And he just was a real third down monster in that game too. I just thought they were really leaning on him in key spots. So look for him to have a big day, but I like them both. That's going to be every week segment, I think. Just who's playing the Titans, start the wide receivers. What do you think about that, Evan?
Yeah,
like strategy.
I was in on Laviska at the beginning of the season, and then through the first few weeks, man, just how this Jags offense looked, I got down on him, and I wish I hadn't, jumped ship so quick, man, because with the Shark injury, I think the rest of the season you can lock in Laviska as a wide receiver too, like you said, with upside. He's going to get the targets in that offense, and especially in week 5, man. Going against the Titans, who are giving up the second most fantasy points to wideouts so far this season. So great matchup. And, like I said, just moving forward, the targets are going to be available. And I think him and Marvin Jones are going to eat. So especially, in a team that in a lot of instances are going to be, trying to throw down field to stay in the game, So definitely I'm all in on Laviska, especially this week.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It's just not a good defense. Got to throw. They looked better last week, so I like where that offense is going. Final thoughts there on Jaguars wide receivers, Mike. Like them this week?
You guys pretty much hit it. I mean, the only thing more sure than the Tennessee Titans wanting to play wide receivers against Tennessee Titans is the fact that there's turmoil in Jacksonville's locker room. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a win the game despite Urban, like throw it in Urban. I don't know. Maybe they don't let him say anything and they just win the game. And I do think this will be Trevor Lawrence's best game to date. I think I would like him to super flex there, but I do like him. If I like the receivers, I probably like the quarterback. So I think Trevor Lawrence will be solid there. Next topic, we're going to roll along to number 4 here. This is back to you, Evan. We do have one in the chat I think we could jump to here. It's related to a team you're going to discuss here. So give us your topic here at number 4.
So it's going to be Kyle Pitts. I think the breakout is finally coming. I was going to start him regardless against a bad Jets defense. Where a lot of people drafted Kyle Pitts, it seems, we're just going to have to start him. We're just keep hoping for this breakout. But I think it's finally here. like I said, I was starting him regardless, but then the Calvin Ridley news hit, that unfortunately he's not going to be making the trip to London. Yeah, for some personal reasons. So I hope everything's okay on that front with Calvin Ridley. But yeah, towards Pitts, I'm all in on him because with Ridley out, Pitts is set up to take on one of, if not the largest tight end workloads in the league this week. We know he's seeing the targets. We know he's seeing the yards. He has 219 air yards this season, which ranks 5th at the position. And he's tied for the most targets inside the 10 at the tight end position. So we just need that final step to take place for Matt Ryan and him to finally hook up for some big plays and for some scores, which I think this week against the Jets can happen. We know Matt Ryan's going to target him a lot. He's going to pepper him in targets this week. And I just, like I said, the game we have all been waiting for from the rookie tight end, I think will finally happen this week. With Ridley out, go ahead and safely plug and play Pitts as a top 5 option at the position this week.
This is the one.
This is it.
We'll say it every week until it finally happens. Pitts this week. This is the one. I don't have a lot to add there. Love Pitts. I'm waiting for it. I also think you could see a decent Mike Davis game this week. I dare say third worst, or they're like I think the worst against the running back.
Sneaky
right
DFS.
One of the worst.
No, they are worse. They're
worst.
They're ranked. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I don't love Mike Davis. Didn't really love him coming in, but if you're gonna ride him, I think this would be the week because they don't have any receivers. So, Mike, what do you think here? Kyle Pitts, is this the week?
Kyle, I'm gonna
tight end maybe.
I think he's gonna actually play wide out more. Play out wide because of everything. Because you figure they got. I think their only wide receivers are Tajay Sharp.
Zacchaeus.
Those are their top 2. So what I think they're gonna actually. I think I'm playing Hayden Hurst. I'm playing Hayden Hurst and SFB.
I got Cordarrelle Patterson going all over the place. So
yeah, so I think
superstar.
I just think Pitts and Hurst. If you're gonna, there's been people saying all season that there's gonna be games where you can play both of them. This is it.
Yeah, this would be the one. Yeah. Here's a quick question, semi-related. I'm assuming the viewer here means Cordarrelle Patterson. I would guess, not Jared.
It would have to,
but
yeah.
But would you do this? Traded Patterson and Amari Cooper for Calvin Ridley. So Calvin Ridley obviously going to miss this week, not going to the London game. But here's a chance. Some of the talk's been like, can you buy low on Calvin Ridley? I don't know if this is low, but would you do this? Patterson, fantasy superstar, as we said. Amari, solid. I actually probably think I'm sticking with Patterson and Amari here.
Staying here, yeah.
You're staying there as well? What
yeah.
about you, Mike?
I would maybe think about doing it if it was Dynasty. If this is redraft, which it probably is, I am absolutely staying with the Amari Patterson side.
Oh, yeah, in Dynasty, I'm on it.
Oh, yeah, for sure in Dynasty. Yeah. I do not know if this is Dynasty or not, but
I think, yeah.
But yeah,
I can see like an Amari.
In redraft, Amari and Ridley, especially this season, are too comparable. And then we see the Dallas offense who is playing great. So I would just, and then Cordarrelle Patterson's just playing out of his mind right now. So I don't think he's wrong for aiming high with Cordarrelle Patterson, but I'm not even sure that you have to give up Amari. You can get you can get a really significant return for Cordarrelle Patterson alone right now.
Yeah, and this is a good point. We've been saying this, and I think you see this everywhere. The guy's doing the efficiency rate with Patterson's insane. He's playing 30% of the target share, the snap share, and getting 75% like target share on those snaps. He's basically anytime he's on the field, he's getting the ball and doing big things with it. So
unreal.
Is that sustainable is the question.
Yeah, if you want to talk about sell high.
Yeah. It's just, it seems like everybody's in on it though. So it'll be interesting. Like so I don't mind buying, into Ridley. Cause like, I think better days are to come. It's just, what do you use to go and get Calvin Ridley is kind of the question. And then can you truly sell high on Patterson is another question. Cause most people have played fantasy where they're like, yeah, sure. We're 8 years into this. Is this going to last? So
in a casual league, you can get the work for him.
The more casual the league, the better your odds there.
For
so,
sure.
I mean,
so
I saw Cook straight across for Patterson.
Mm-hmm. I've seen
that's
it.
wild. That's
Yeah,
wild. That's
I've
crazy.
seen it. Yep.
All right, let's move on here. We're actually in a nice little block here. We never talked tight ends, and we've got a little run of tight end talk here. So let's keep it going here, Mike, with number 5.
Yeah, I was gonna call it that, but you nailed it on the right when I realized that Evan was. I knew what yours was,
Like,
and I saw
tight
Evan
end.
was. Yeah, it's tight end block.
I hate
All
this
right.
position, but let's do it.
So Evan is gonna love me on this one. Dalton freaking Schultz. I absolutely love this guy right now, and I am starting him. I think he is a must start for the rest of the season. I think even when Michael Gallup comes back, that he is going to end up overtaking the workload of the number 1 tight end from Blake Jarwin. And Blake Jarwin's going to end up being the guy that's in on the 2 tight end sets, and Schultz is going to take over. Right now, he is the number 4 tight end in the NFL. If anyone would have said that he was going to be the number 4 fantasy tight end right now, come on, take me to Vegas with you, because there's something special. 20 receptions on 23 targets. He has 201 yards and 3 touchdowns. He has 119 air yards. This is all happening with him in routes and only 49.6% of the snaps he's on. That just shows his efficiency. He's 17.6% target share for the team. The reason I bring that up is when you have Evan knows this more than any of us because he is a Dallas fan. They have weapons up the kazoo that they can spread the ball out. So where 17% might not be a lot on one team, when you have Jarwin, Schultz, Pollard, Elliott, Cooper, CD, Cedric Wilson at times. I just think that Schultz is getting the run, and him being that high so far, it's only going to, even if he drops off, he's going to be a top 12 tight end. And that's what people look for because we know how scarcity this position can be at times. So if you can find one, keep him.
That's right. And I would say I'm not shocked that he's up there. I would say surprised because I mean we are talking about a position that had Logan Thomas and Robert Tonyan, I think, top 5 last year. So yeah. I'm not floored, but yes, I mean Dalton Schultz. No one was picking this coming into the year, so it's definitely a surprise. But tight end never truly shocks me. It's always crazy. And I'll throw it to you, Evan. Here, you're the Dallas fan. Your thoughts on Schultz?
Yeah, it's kind of funny to me because last year when we knew Dak was healthy, everything was going fine. Everyone was pegging Blake Jarwin to be this breakout tight end, a sleeper tight end in this offense. So it's it's just Dalton Schultz is just kind of taking on that role. But yeah, I mean he's absolutely about to take this role completely away from Jarwin. At least, I mean, the numbers prove it. Last week against Carolina, he saw 36.4% of the target share. He had reeled in 6 of his 7 targets, 58 yards, and yet had another touchdown. He ran, I think it was 19 receiving routes to Jarwin's 9. So he's slowly but surely just, taking this position, kind of all to himself away from Jarwin. It's definitely his position moving forward. And in this offense, the sky's the limit for him because obviously the teams are going to be focusing their defense to those skilled receivers. And a lot of times Dalton Schultz just gets to run free. So I think he's going to continue. I don't think this is a fluke at all. Just because of the, like I said, the skill receivers we have in this offense, a lot of times Dalton Schultz is going to be the last freaking player on this team that any defense worries about.
Yeah, and he was solid last year. He was, so it's not like it's just a guy that didn't do anything ever. Not that would necessarily matter, but he was solid for them last year. So I just definitely for sure, totally with you that if you have him on your roster and you don't have one of the top guys, it's a guy you should probably be playing in your tight end spot week in and week out. Especially if you don't, have any other options that are in, that top echelon. I'm going to keep tight ends going here. because it's so fun. And talk about another guy that's quietly moved back into the top 12. It's a guy we've liked for a while at the tight end, looking for him to make a leap, and it's Mike Gesicki. And this is a guy that had a very disappointing week 1 this year. Came in and I think he put up a 0, basically, just was not involved at all. And then over the last 2 weeks, he's gotten up his his target share to around 20% last couple of weeks. He had 7 targets in week 2, 12 in week 3, and then 6 in last week. And it's kind of had an uptick related a little bit to Brissett. Since Brissett's come in, he's been favored a little bit more there, and he's seeing a little bit more looks. Obviously, from the passing perspective, you haven't seen Will Fuller come back, so there hasn't really been any extra competition at the wide receiver position. And he's also staying on the field more. He's playing 70% of the snaps as well. And then we come into this matchup this week. This is a matchup where they're playing Tampa Bay, and we all know what happens when you play the Buccaneers. You don't run the ball, and you have to pass the ball to stay with Tom Brady in that offense. So I think the receivers should be solid here. Favor Waddle, probably out of the two of them there. But then also Mike Gesicki should remain involved, and Tampa Bay has given up points to the tight end this year. They've given up the 3rd most points to opposing tight ends. So we saw a solid play from, we just talked about it, Schultz and the Dallas tight ends. We saw a solid play from the New England tight ends. We actually saw Jonnu score a touchdown, which was a welcome sight. Higbee was also a tight end 1 the week that they faced him. And actually Pitts had his best day, really was against Tampa Bay that of the season so far. So really no shortage of tight ends doing well there. And Gesicki has snuck a back up, like I said, into that top 12. And I think he's in the discussion for a guy like Schultz, where you're playing him week in and week out. I would play him over guys like, I'd edge him over Knox, who I like Dawson Knox on the Bills. I would edge him over, if I had to choose between him and Schultz, I'd go with Gesicki this week. And then I'd have him over guys like Tonyan. And I actually even have him over Noah Fant this week. So, because I really like that matchup. I just think, like, if they're going to hang with Tampa Bay, it's going to probably have to come through the passing game. And I look for Gesicki to be involved. So I do like Mike Gesicki this week. So it looks like we have some solid tight end options emerging that we didn't expect. What do you guys think about Miami this week and Mike Gesicki in particular? Mike, I'll throw it to you first.
I like Gesicki all year. I had him high in like my top 10 in before the season started. He dipped a little bit. All I'm going to say is I think this is a factor, especially because of the Tampa Bay situation with their defense funneling towards the passing game. But Brissett is part of the reason. I think Brissett has a connection with him, and as long as I know Tua can come back in a few weeks, but as long as Brissett's in the game, I feel confident starting Gesicki.
I like that. Seemed to turn more with Brissett for sure. Definitely a connection there, which I like. Evan, any thoughts on Mike Gesicki?
No, I mean, with it seems with Jacoby Brissett taking over, he is liking him some Mike Gesicki. I know in week 1, I think he really didn't do anything with Tua. And in the last 3 weeks, he has seemed to turn it on. Last week he was 5 for 57 yards and a touchdown. So I think, like you said, the Bucs defense has been, not the greatest against opposing tight ends, and we know they are completely banged up in that secondary. And we also know that Will Fuller is out, and Devontae Parker just popped up on the injury list with injury to his shoulder, so he's now questionable. So it looks that Waddle and Gesicki should be the 2 main targets. So yeah, why not Mike Gesicki for a tight end 1 with upside this week?
Sure. Love it. Loving these tight ends. If you don't have some of these tight ends and you're thinking about making a move, you might be involved in a trade like this. One of the comments in the chat has a trade of, should you trade Chris Carson, the aforementioned slightly injured, missed Thursday's game, Seahawk without Russell Wilson now, and Mark Andrews. So this is Carson and Andrews in a trade for James Robinson and Kenny Golladay. And this team also has Higbee on the bench. They have a little bit of depth there. Not one of our guys here, Schultz and Gesicki, but Higbee, who's solid enough. my thoughts quick, and I'll give you guys real quick to do this. I think I'd do this. I like James Robinson as a solid fringe RB1, honestly, because I think he's going to get the workload going forward there like he did last week. Kenny Golladay, with some of the injuries there, is emerging. I'm not a huge Kenny Golladay guy, but I think he's a solid enough play at wide receiver. Chris Carson's injury scares me, and that offense now scares me. I think you're not going to lose too much in Andrews. I like Andrews, but I think you gain more than you lose. What do you guys think of this trade here?
Agree. That's all I need to say.
You're doing that. You're taking Robinson and Golladay. You 3 for 3, Evan?
Yeah, I think I would take it with Chris Carson's injury, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest part of this trade for me is it just scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
We know James Robinson is healthy. He's been producing. So that's the main part of this trade for me. You already have Higbee. You're not losing that much, with Mark Andrews. And then you get Golladay, who we know is kind of the top guy in this offense right now with the Shepard injury. And we don't know how long that timetable is going to be. So, yeah, I would definitely do this trade.
Nice. Make that trade for sure. All right. Moving on. Number 7. We're up to yours, Evan, here. What do you got for us?
So, staying on the Dolphins train, it's time to just, for me and everyone alike, just go ahead and flat out drop Myles Gaskin.
All formats?
He's no. We're not taking it that far. But in redraft, just Myles Gaskin can go to the waiver wire. It's time to move on, and it sucks to say because I was so in on him coming into the season. But I mean, he's just not being used in this offense. And when they are utilizing him, they're not utilizing his skill set properly, which we know is his knack to catch passes out of the backfield. It's just mind-boggling to me. He hasn't reached double-digit fantasy points since week 1. And has only seen double-digit carries once this year, which is in week 3 when he saw 13. Last week, he only saw 23% of the snaps and 2 attempts for a whopping 3 yards. And the icing on the cake, he didn't see a single freaking target, not one. Now he gets to see the Bucs, who we all know has a stout run defense. Not even teams who have elite level running backs are even willing to let them loose against this Bucs defensive front. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's just time to move on from Gaskin, drop him, and take your chances with someone else off the waiver wire.
All right. You looked pained, Mike, there. Do you have some Gaskin love
that's
some
Mike's guy.
Gaskin experience that some pain that you would like to share with us?
I predicted all offseason he was going to be a top 15 running back. And he was my guy in the offseason. He was the guy that I touted and I stuck my face out for. And this just pains me because Evan, I don't know if I would drop him, but Evan is so right on this one. He's one of 3, if you want to call number 1 backs now, because we all know the running back by committee stuff. But he's one of 3 running backs this season to have his snap share decrease every single game. I think it's probably going to continue. And if he's not efficient, Malcolm Brown gets a run and runs it for a touchdown against the Raiders.
They don't care. They're like, whatever. And Malcolm Brown runs 2.5 yards per carry. They're like, we like it.
And when he got into the end zone, I thought it was Gaskin for 30 seconds, and I thought it was the best thing ever. And then I realized it was some guy that the Rams threw away, and I was irritated. But just to close it out, Evan's right. If you need the bench spot, go for it. He might have 1 or 2 weeks that pop off, but he is no longer the workhorse back. He's no longer the number 1 back. And he's proving right now that the Miami Dolphins should have drafted a running back in the draft.
Sure. They did. Jared Dokes in the 7th round or something.
Thanks. You just proved my point.
I think they cut him. He's on their practice squad, but
the opportunity for Najee.
Yeah, I know. Man,
yeah.
Yeah, they just love Malcolm Brown, and it's really pass pro. What I've been reading, they just hate Gaskin's pass pro. They just hate it. And
hate it.
Flores from the Belichick coaching tree, where it's like you do something that's a minus skill there, it's going to get you benched. Essentially, it's not going to get you out there. I hate it because I did not buy into Gaskin as much as others coming into the season. But of course, in a dynasty league, I trade to my brother's team, second round pick for Gaskin. I was desperate at running back, and he immediately got like a 0. Just was like, well, that teaches me for not buying in, and then finally being like, I need help, and then I buy in, and then he does bad. But yeah, that's how it goes with them, and we'll see if he can get back on the field, because it wasn't looking good there. So, and if Malcolm Brown's playing over you, that's not a good sign.
Exactly.
Let's keep the running back. We've got, I think we set up our show studio so good here. We got running back hour here, and we're gonna keep it up with number 8. Mike, get us to our 8th topic of the week.
All right, so this is an overall, not just about this week. Everyone knows Derrick Henry is a beast on the ground, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Derrick Henry, the pass-catching running back. Yes, he has 14 receptions on 15 targets in 4 games. The reason I bring this up, he had 19 receptions on 31 targets all last season. He has more targets. Would you think that he would have, through 4 games, he has more targets than Alvin Kamara? He has more targets than Aaron Jones, and he has more targets than Miles Sanders, who supposedly has pass-catching running back. Okay? The reason I bring this up is if this can continue, I know the workload, he keeps getting carries and whatever, but I don't care, because Derrick Henry, if he keeps getting the passing load like this, I know McNichols has a bunch of targets as well. Henry is going to be unstoppable. And think of this. If you're a DB and he swings out and gets a swing pass and he has 4 yards of freaking full speed before he gets close to you, I'd be running the other way and not even wanting to be Josh Norman from last year. I'd be running into the end zone away from him. I mean, this is the other thing that drives me nuts about this. I think Arthur Smith is at blame here. He was using him wrong last year, because everyone says, oh, he couldn't catch the ball out of the backfield. And then they're saying, oh, it's Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith doesn't target the running back, blah, blah, blah. Atlanta leads the league in running back targets with 46 this year.
That's because he found his muse, and
he found Cordarrelle Patterson. Yes, I know he found Cordarrelle Patterson, but Derrick Henry is finally getting the opportunity to show he can catch out of the backfield, and I think it's only skyward. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're always searching for the next this and the next that. If we were searching for the next the next CMC, who knew that it was Derrick Henry all along, that he was going to be the next guy coming up? Yeah, it's wild. It's almost not fair now. He's almost like a double cheat code. Like,
yeah,
he gets 30 carries a game, and now he's getting 10 targets. Like, that's just not fair.
No.
And I'm jealous that I don't have him on more teams, honestly, because I think I don't know. I think he could keep it up. I think he's a league winner this year. He's like the only one. I think he's like 35 points ahead on the second running back already.
Hold on,
in terms of fantasy points. It's wild, just the gap of Derrick Henry and
half point PPR. He has 96.5, and Eckler has 77.4.
Yeah, he's the closest. So you got 20, and Eckler he just closed the gap, honestly, with a good week. So Derrick, I have nothing else to say on Derrick Henry. He's the man. Evan, can you even put this into words?
Yeah, just one thing real quick to add. We obviously know Derrick Henry is the running back one, consensus running back one. But this week he gets the Jags, who he has faced 10 times in his career and has 3 games where he has had 150 yards or more. So this week, look for him to just, keep on running and running and running all over the Jaguars once again for 150 yards plus.
And yes, to the thing in the chat, Josh, yes, I would like to trade for him in our Debbie League. Yes, give him to me now. I'll take him.
I wonder what it would take.
I don't know. My whole team probably, but Moving on, we're going to run to the flip side of running back. So Derrick Henry is the cream of the crop, but there really isn't a ton behind him. We like Austin Eckler, we like some of these other guys, but there are a lot of bad running back situations, and I wanted to highlight a few of them that I didn't like this week. I don't know what you do, honestly, because you're scrapping really for that second running back. In all, like, you're just looking for a second guy to play that's in a situation where they'll actually get carries or touches. One that I wanted to highlight first is Baltimore. So Baltimore is a Monday night game this week, and this team has flip-flopped between all of these guys they're running out there at running back the entire time this year. You had Tyson Williams leading the way. We really liked him versus Detroit. Does nothing. Had 50% snap share in that game, then comes out into a healthy scratch last week, and they give Latavius Murray like 60%. We don't know if Tyson Williams is going to be active for Monday's game, but they also gave Lev Bell snaps last week and touches. So that's a situation I'm just staying away from completely. So you throw that one out because I don't think you could trust it. Latavius Murray's in people's like top 25s this week. It's like, if I could find anything else to play there, I'm not playing that, because if Tyson Williams is active, that's going to be a disaster. But you really can't find better situations. You look at, I love, Javonte Williams on Denver, but him and Melvin Gordon, you go every week and it's almost identical snap shares and touches, pretty much even every week. And they have a tough matchup this week. So when you're getting split carries there, how do you play one of them? So I try to avoid that situation. But then you move over to a situation like the Bengals running backs this week. Oh, Joe Mixon's out. Is there any guy I could pick up there? Samaje Perine. I know they're talking about a split. Maybe they'll split carries with him and Chris Evans, whoever else they could throw out there. And that's it. Not a matchup I really love. And that team's not running the ball well anyways, even when they have Joe Mixon out there. So can't trust that one. Miles Sanders doesn't get any carries on Philadelphia, and he's splitting time with Kenny Gainwell, particularly in the pass area. So you can't trust them. It's not good as you go down the line in terms of running backs that you could play. That's where it's like, if you can get a spot, particularly in Dynasty, your hands on like a Chase Edmonds, who unfortunately is a game time decision this week too. He has a little bit of an injury, but like Darrell Henderson, James Robinson, these guys that are getting guaranteed workload, like that's what you have to do. And that's going to be harder for you to do in redraft. But if you're in a Dynasty setting, like, try to find a stable option as your two, because these other situations are just not great. There's hope in some of them. It's like, man, if Gordon or Javonte, one of them missed time, yeah, I'd love that. But these tandems, there's just so many of them this year, and I don't know what I can trust week to week. So it is tough when you get to that 20 mark of running back rankings to find something that you could believe in. So I know I talked about a lot of things there. Any thoughts on running back? Is it as bad as I'm making it out to be, or are there some diamonds in the rough out there?
I want to quote last week's show, and I'm going to quote your brother. The running back situation on the bottom is hot garbage.
Is it hot garbage or a dumpster fire? They're different.
They're different. That's really all I have to add, because everything you said is 100% correct.
Yeah, it's just bad. Any final thoughts on that, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, people were, we already had that kind of that cliff at running back. When we reached a certain point, it just fell off. And now we're hitting week 5 and we start getting these injuries to some of the top running backs. And I mean, now people are scrambling to do anything for a running back, and it's just crazy. I mean, they are a hot commodity right now. And if you have, if you were lucky enough to make it to week 5 and you're not hurting at running back, you are in a great position. Hold on to them for dear life.
That is for sure. So I think that's enough bad running backs. Let's get to our cheat of the week. This is number 10. We're going to give you rapid fire here. Our final thoughts on the week. We each have our cheat of the week for you, and we're going to kick it off with Evan. Give us your cheat of the week.
Well, hold on. Before Evan gives his cheat of the week, we just need to rename Evans his bet of the week.
Oh yeah, we should name it Evan's bet of the week. Yeah, you can get your own set. We should get your own set. We can get a sponsor for it. I've
just been, I've been staying consistent, man. I'm just sticking with it. especially because last week my freaking streak ended with the damn Vikings. I was all over them, I was to go 4-0 on my underdog bets, and the Vikings didn't come through for me.
They were in that game too, but
Exactly. That was the most frustrating part, is they were in it.
Right there.
I was like, even towards the end of the game, I was like, okay, I get another chance. And then Kirk Cousins just throwing into double coverage, just driving me freaking nuts. I don't know what the guy was doing. Anyway, I regress. On to this week, I'm going with another underdog, and that's the Buffalo Bills on the money line against Mike's Chiefs. We know both teams, they have a top 3 scoring offense, elite level quarterbacks. But for me, and the difference in this game, and it's a huge difference, is the Bills defense, who have surrendered the fewest points with 44 and the fewest total yards with 867 in the league. So far this year, the Chiefs rank 31st in both of those categories, giving up 125 points and 1,751 yards. So for me, it comes down to the defense in this game. We know the offenses, like I said, are elite, but I think the difference in this game is the Bills' defense. I think they will be able to do enough to come away with a win in this game. And one last point, the spread is under 3 points. That's going to be the first time ever in a Patrick Mahomes start at home he's going to be favored less than a field goal. So that should tell you something right there. With the Bills getting points with that elite defense, it is the Chiefs, but I'm going to take the points in this one.
What do you think, Mike? You like that bet? You going with your Chiefs or the Bills?
I'm going by the golden rule of you don't bet your team's game. I really don't.
We're not betting it. You're just picking it here.
But I'm picking the Chiefs. I picked them in my work pool. But I have a confidence pool at work where you got to rank the games all the way down. I only put 2 points on the Chiefs because I'm not confident. And Evan is 100% right. It's something that we brought up last week, and I'm just going to give 1 point just to prove how bad my team's defense is. When you give 405 yards in passing to Jalen freaking Hurts, Josh Allen is going to eat us alive. And, I mean, in my rankings for going for 2, Josh Allen's my number 1 quarterback. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, for sure. I think there'll be some fantasy points here. I like the Bills, I guess. I feel like this game means more to them. They need to we are on the map. We are a Super Bowl contender this year. They had to have been circling this game. I just got to think that they could put it together and get a win here. But it's a good game. I like this one. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it.
There you go.
Let's throw it to you, Mike. You talked about some, obviously Josh Allen. We like him. Do you have any other thoughts on QBs this week for your cheat of the week?
Yes, I do. So I actually stumbled upon this in researching another player. Fantasy Pros has a chart of quality. They call it poor, quality, or great starts for quarterbacks. A quality start is anywhere in between 15.3 points and 23 points, and a great start is anything more than 23. In the first 4 weeks, there were 10 quarterbacks that had either a quality or all quality or great starts, meaning they had their 15.3 points or higher all 4 games. You would expect that from the Kyler Murrays, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens. Mahomes was the only one to have all 4 of his first starts over 23. But the key ones to me are the ones on the bottom end of it. Derek Carr, Sam Darnold, I kind of expected it just because he's the number 5 right now. Even Jalen Hurts, who we talked about, he has 2 that are in the 15.3 to the 23 category, and he has 2 over 23. But to me, the biggest one, and this just shows you you don't realize how players are doing. Daniel Dimes Jones himself. He has all 4 of his starts have been over 15.3 points. He is more consistent than we thought. He's not hot garbage. And I think he is proving, even with injured wide receivers, with Shepard being out and Slayton being out, and Stonehands Ingram himself being out for a while, he is proving that he could still be a decent quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, what's he like? Right behind Darnold. They're like 5'6", I think, overall. Yeah. It's actually it's surprising when you look at the layer. Like, oh, Danny Jones up there. Wow. He's dual threat too. He's been fantastic. Before I do my cheat of the week, that's a good one. Just this is a hard one to answer, but it's in the chat. We got who are your top 3 fantasy players for week 5. Must starts, basically, they're saying. And mine are easy, I think, because I think your top guys at the position are kind of no-brainers this week. You got Devontae Adams, love him going against the Bengals. Derrick Henry, obviously, how can you not love Derrick Henry? If I have to cross positions, Josh Allen would be my other one because he's going to eat there. But I think staying in that same game is obviously Travis Kelce, right? I think he could do well against if they can shut down Hill at all, someone has to eat there. And I think it could be Kelce. One that's a little lower, though. I love Justin Jefferson this week, too, against Detroit. Detroit can't stop anybody, so he would be my other one. Any other thoughts quick there? You don't have to give 3, but a guy you're just like, he's going to crush this week.
I'm high on Kareem Hunt this week.
Yeah, I do like him, too. He's got a good matchup. Mike, anybody stand out for you?
I think it's all the top guys, but I definitely think that because it's a question mark, I'm not saying like top 10 or anything, but if Chase Edmonds is out, I expect Rondale Moore to have more of a factor.
Oh, Rondale. I was going to say you like Connor, but I think Connor actually will be okay because he'll get more.
Yeah,
maybe more.
Connor will be okay no matter what. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Rondale, maybe he could get a little bit more there, a little bit more design for him, which would be interesting. So those are some thoughts, but the top guys have some juicy matchups this week, so you can't go wrong with those guys.
In DFS, I am starting all the Devontae Adams, and I'm figuring out how to get different elsewhere. I mean, he is freaking
lower guys into your lineup somehow.
Yeah, but Devontae Adams needs to be in lineups.
Yes. I love his. I don't know how you can't love that matchup this week. My final topic. This is my cheat of the week. I just want you to name. Can you name for me who has the highest fantasy points for the rookie quarterbacks so far for a game?
I already
in one single game. Who has the highest out of Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or why am I forgetting one? Zach Wilson. Who has the highest fantasy points in one game?
It would have to be Trey Lance or Trevor Lawrence.
It's Trey Lance, baby. He's got
Trey Lance in one half.
A part of game last week.
Trevor Lawrence had a pretty good score.
Yeah. Lawrence is second. He's got a 19-point game in his first one. Actually, it was week 1. Yeah. Trey Lance in basically a half. Scores over 20 points, fantasy points last week. And now he's going to start this weekend. So this is my cheat, is not necessarily to go out and immediately start him, but he's interesting, man. In one half of the game, he scores over 20. The question is kind of, can you trust him? No Kittle this week. He is doubtful for the game. They do have Elijah Mitchell coming back. So they've got a lot of running guys there. They've got Trey Lance who can run. He had 7 carries last week. You got Mitchell and Sermon. So that's a little bit of a disaster there from a running back perspective. But Lance showed flashes of what you're going to see. Inconsistency, but also some big plays. So it will be interesting against a defense that you can score against. Arizona's not a terrible matchup. Their defense is not exactly awesome. Kirk Cousins lit them up pretty good a couple weeks ago. I would if you're desperate in the super flex mode, I actually think he's a reasonable play. But if obviously in one quarterback, I can't do that. That'd be raising him too high. But it's just funny to me that out of all the performances we've seen so far, everybody else has gotten a chance to start. He actually, without a start, has the most fantasy points of any of the rookie quarterbacks so far. And last thoughts there. Any thoughts on Trey Lance before we wrap it up for the week?
Yeah, I love Trey Lance, man. I've been waiting for this, and I would actually take the shot on him in one quarterback leagues as well.
You would?
I think
I guess if you had like Tannehill, maybe then I might do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think he has, he's a top 12 play, and I think, with Shanahan knowing that he's going to be the starter and an offense tailored to his skill set, I think he has, we've already seen what he did in 2 quarters. If he can, project that over 4 quarters, that's top 5 upside. Oh, yeah. So I think with, like I said, with an offense tailored to his skill set, man, I'm excited to see what the young man's going to do this week.
Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. The question would be like if the defense could somehow gear up for him. They were kind of holding it back. They just announced that, I think it was earlier today. So I got to think Arizona kind of expected it coming in. Garoppolo seemed pretty doubtful, but yeah, I'm excited because he dual threat. It's going to be interesting. The only question would be there, Kittle out, loses a weapon. I think Debo must.
But the rushing upside will keep.
Yeah,
the rushing upside. So
love that. So. All right, so let's wrap it up here. I think we went through our 10. We got all the info we needed to give you before week 5 here. Quick round robin here. Do your plugs. Where can we find you? Evan, let's start with you.
All right, guys. As you know by now, you can find all my content at goingfor2.com, as well as all of us pretty much. I do a lot of DFS content, betting content, season long. You can find me over at Twitter at EV_RITT3, at EV_RIT3. I'll be having my betting article, best over-unders of the week. I throw a couple, prop bets in there, a parlay I like. So that'll be coming out. I'm going to finish it, work on it some tonight. So it'll come out tomorrow at some point. And then I will be on the Sunday morning show at 11, where we talk DFS. We, talk lineups, start, sit, and, inactives, actives. So it's a good time. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday.
All right, Mike, where can we find you?
All right, you can find me right here at Drop the Mic FF on Twitter and on Instagram. The reason I bring up Instagram is if anybody that is watching us or sees us later, if I am trying to get a better hand at graphics, you guys both know that. I posted in the Going for 2 chat. If anybody has someone that you want me to do one just to try out, I will say I'm not very great yet, but I am trying to get better. So I will throw that out there. You can also just, message me anything if you guys have any questions, anything fantasy related. You can check my rankings out on Going for 2. I do redraft rankings every week with some of the other guys. And you can check I haven't written in a while, but you can check some of my dynasty stuff out on Going for 2. And let's get this week going.
Yeah, let's get it going. You could find me once again at JC_DFF. I also write at Going for 2. Do a lot of dynasty stuff there. Do a show with my brothers called at Brothers of Dynasty. That is at Bros of Dynasty on Twitter. So you could check that out. And yeah, feel free anytime to hit me up on Twitter, DMs, or at me. Any start sits, any types of questions whatsoever. All 3 of us, just hit us up, because honestly, that's one of my favorite parts, is just question, trade, anything, and just, kind of discussing it and, coming up with an answer. So that's where you could find us all. Make sure you check out all of those things. Send Mike something to do for graphics. I've seen them. They're getting better and better every time Mike does a graphic. I like it. Definitely fire there. So like that. And for all of us, for Mike, for Evan, I'm Jay. We will see you next week. Enjoy week 5 and hope you win all your leagues and win some money. We'll check you later. Check next week. See ya.